To do some of the problems with you. Make sure when you color in, this first answer is 2 and 1/4. So find 2 and 1/4 on here and color it in. You don't need to spend too much time. I believe each problem have about 2 answers on here. No, right there. Okay, and then 5/8. Make sure you color. You just shade very fast, otherwise you're just wasting your time. The reason why I have you do this is make sure you do the problem correctly. And if you don't do it right, you need to figure out why you're doing it wrong. Okay? There you go, like that. 5/8. I left some problem out just in case I can see that maybe students will have a hard time with. Let's say we'll start out with this problem right here. I'll do that one right there. And these are all the other answers and how to do them. Okay, so I'll go over here. First, you need to find the least common denominator, which in this case is 12. Okay, 12. That's 11. That doesn't change because it has a denominator 12 already. Okay, so you just copy it. This one, 6 times what makes 12 times 2 times 2, that's 10. Subtract that, get 1/12. Okay, it's how you do a simple one. These are simple. Now, I'll do the other ones may not be so simple. This one is a simple one. Least common denominator 16. Least common denominator 16 is what number can divide by both into both. Is 16. 4 into 16 is 4 times. You can take shortcuts and do that, and you don't have to write times 4 down here. You just write it once. 4 times 1, right? 9. Subtract that, you get 5/16. Now here's where the problem lies. This type of problem right here. Least common denominator is 8. Okay, least common denominator is 8. 4 times what makes 8 times 2? That's 2. Then that stays a 5. You can't subtract, you borrow. When you borrow a whole here, when you borrow a whole with a denominator of 8 is 8/8. That's a whole. So you plus the 8 here because you're adding a whole right here, that whole 8/8. You borrowed this whole, one whole, subtract one whole is 2. So that then is 10/8 minus 5, so you get 5/8. And then 2 minus 1 is 1 right there. Okay, so same thing with this one here. Least common denominator is not 24, it's 12. Both 4 and 6 can go into 12. Okay, 4 and 6 can go into 12. 3 times what makes 12? 4 times what makes 12 is 3. So that's 9. 6 times 2 is 12. That's 10. You can't subtract, but you can borrow though. Borrow from here. The reason why it's not a negative answer, because you can borrow. Borrow one whole. Borrowing one whole becomes 2 whole that's left. Denominator's 12. So you're borrowing 12/12. You're borrowing 12/12. You're borrowing, that means you add that 12. That makes it 21. 21 subtract 10 is 11/12. And 2 minus 2 is 0. You don't put the 0 when there isn't a number there. We assume in this case it's a 0. Whole number is 0. Same thing here, least common denominator is 10. Both 2 and 5 can go into 10, so least common denominator is 10. 2 times what makes 10? 2 times 5. Times 5 here is 5. 5 times what makes 10? Times 2, right? So times 2, it's 8. You cannot subtract. This is the denominator's 10, so you're borrowing from here. It becomes a 1. You're borrowing with a denominator of 10. It's 10 over 10. Okay, so this is that's 10 over 10. So you're adding this 10 right here. You're borrowing a whole, that 10 over the 10. You get 15. 15 minus 8 is 7 over 10. And 1 minus 1 is a 0. You don't write that 0. Here, this is easier because you won't need to borrow. Least common denominator is 12. Okay, both 3 and 4 can divide into 12. 3 times 4 is 12, so 2 times 4 is 8. 4 times 3 is 12, so you get 3 here. You get 5 over 8 and 3. 5 minus 2 is 3. Same thing here. Least common denominator is 14. Okay. Times 7 times 2, because 7 times 2 is 14. Okay, you have to borrow. Borrow from the 3, it becomes a 2 whole. Well, we're talking about 2, borrowing 1 whole. 1 whole is 14 over 14, right? So add 14 here. You get 21. Subtract 10 is 11 over 14. And 2 minus 1 is 1. So 11 over 14. And then same thing here. Least common denominator is 12 in this case. That doesn't change because it's already a 12. 4 times what makes 12? Times 3. That's 9. You cannot subtract, you borrow. That's a 0. You're borrowing 1 whole. 1 whole is, again, 1 whole in this case is 12 over 12. Makes it, that's why you add 12 here. You get 17. 17 minus 9 is 8 over 12. Reduce that to 2 over 3 by dividing by 4. Okay. And then you get a 0. And that's your answer here. Same thing here. Least common denominator is 16. That's a 1 times 2. That's a 10. Okay. Get rid of that one. That's a 1. You're borrowing 1 whole, and 1 whole in this case is 16 over 16. That's 1 whole. So you add 16 here, make that 17. 10 minus 7, 17 minus 10 is 7 over 16. And 1 minus 1 is 0, so that's your answer. Okay, so that's the answer to all the front 34. So you can check your answer. Make sure you know how to do these. Fractions important, and my second one will be the back side.